The anarchist and the Republican. Let me tell you a story about two men who couldn't have looked more different, but who somehow ended up on the same side of something that really matters: freedom. One of them rode in on a motorcycle, once called an anarchist by the FBI, and a guy who helped the Black Panthers when their leader needed a ride. His name was Carl Hess. He'd ghost-written speeches for Barry Goldwater and Joe McCarthy, but eventually turned his back on Washington, corporate power, and the war machine. The other was a clean-cut Republican who once worked for Richard Nixon and wrote speeches for Ronald Reagan. His name was John McCloughy. He believed in decentralization, local power, and pushing back against big government, not from the outside like Hess, but from within the system. These two men met one day in a Vermont cabin in the 1970s. They'd never spoken before, but they ended up talking for hours in the kitchen like old friends, because despite the different paths they'd taken, they had come to the same conclusion. The real enemy was centralized power. Carl Hess, once the ultimate DC insider, was living in a group house, riding motorcycles, dodging FBI surveillance, and teaching welding to inner-city kids. He wrote a now-famous essay in Playboy called The Death of Politics, which helped launch the modern libertarian movement. John McCloughy was building cabins in Vermont, riding freight trains, fighting land use planners, and trying to get the Republican Party to care about black power, worker ownership, and neighborhood control. Both men believed in self-reliance, decentralization, and in putting power back in the hands of regular people, not bureaucrats. They fought for communities to own their homes, their businesses, their futures. And while Carl was welding sculptures in his bathtub and helping the Panthers rent a car, John was drafting policy proposals that would let poor tenants buy the housing projects they lived in. They took different routes, Carl through rebellion and grassroots tech experiments, John through think tanks and Reagan's speech team. But they were united by a common goal: to reverse the flow of power from the top down and build it back from the bottom up. In a world obsessed with left and right, these guys remind us that the real fight is centralized control versus individual liberty. They both understood that it doesn't matter what team you're on if the team's just playing to enrich the elites. Carl Hess passed away in 1994, still living off the grid, still building things with his hands. John McCloughy lives in Vermont to this day, still serving as a town moderator, still fighting for local control. Their lives are a powerful reminder that liberty doesn't have to fit in a partisan box, and that some of the most important alliances are the ones we least expect.